St. Mary's General Hospital, a seemingly pristine bastion of medical excellence nestled in an affluent suburban community, was about to face a reckoning. When Angela Parker, a talented black nurse with a heart full of dedication, joined their staff, she possessed no inkling of the insidious, deep-seated prejudices that lurked beneath the polished surface. As days bled into weeks, and subtle tensions mounted into undeniable conflicts, a seemingly ordinary patient named Thomas Edwards observed silently from his hospital bed. But Mr. Edwards was far from ordinary. His quiet presence was a dormant volcano, on the verge of erupting to change everything. What hidden power did this mysterious patient hold, and how could one nurse's unyielding struggle become the catalyst for an institutional upheaval? Let's delve into this profound story of courage and unforeseen justice. The sterile, fluorescent-lit halls of St. Mary's gleamed, reflecting Angela Parker's determined silhouette as she took her first steps inside. The air, thick with the sharp scent of disinfectant, carried an almost imperceptible undercurrent of tension that made her stomach clench. Despite the flutter of nerves, Angela straightened her spine, her chin held high, resolved to etch a positive first impression. As she neared the nurse's station, a sudden, almost eerie hush fell over the area. Conversations dwindled to whispers, and eyes, like startled birds, darted away from her, seemingly afraid to make contact. She swallowed hard, a familiar, unwelcome feeling of isolation threatening to envelop her. "Excuse me." Angela's voice, remarkably steady despite her unease, cut through the quiet. "I'm Angela Parker, the new nurse. Could you direct me to the head nurse's office?" A blonde nurse looked up, her blue eyes widening fractionally before a practiced, almost plastic smile stretched across her face. "Of course," she replied, her tone polite but unmistakably cool. "Down the hall, third door on the right." Angela offered a polite nod of thanks and proceeded down the corridor, acutely aware of the prickling sensation of eyes following her every movement. The precise click of her sensible shoes echoed in the unnaturally quiet space, each step feeling like a thunderclap in the suffocating silence. As she neared the office, a tall, distinguished-looking man in a crisp white coat emerged from a nearby room. His salt-and-pepper hair and authoritative bearing immediately marked him as a senior doctor. Angela's heart quickened with a surge of hope. Perhaps this was her chance to forge a genuine, positive connection. "Good morning, doctor," she offered, a warm, genuine smile gracing her lips. "I'm Angela Parker, the new nurse starting today. It's a pleasure to meet you." The doctor's steel-gray eyes swept over her, his expression as unyielding as granite. "Dr. William Greaves," he replied curtly, his voice devoid of warmth. "I trust you've been properly oriented to our protocols. We maintain very high standards here at St. Mary's. I hope you're prepared to meet them." Without waiting for a reply, he brushed past her, his presence a chilly gust, leaving Angela standing alone in the hallway, her outstretched hands slowly falling to her side, the gesture incomplete. The interaction left her feeling deflated, a tiny pinprick of cold seeping into her initial enthusiasm. Yet, Angela stubbornly refused to let it dampen her spirit. She inhaled deeply, squared her shoulders, and delivered a firm knock on the head nurse's door. As she awaited a response, Angela's mind drifted back to her days in nursing school, her mother's words echoing in her ears, a comforting refrain. "Baby girl." Her mother's voice, a tender blend of pride and loving concern, resonated within her. "You're going to have to fight twice as hard as everyone else. But don't you ever let them see you sweat. You come from a long line of strong women, and you've got that same strength in you." Angela vividly recalled the countless late nights spent hunched over textbooks, the extra hours meticulously dedicated in the lab, and the persistent, gnawing sensation of having to perpetually prove herself. She remembered the subtle dismissals from some professors, the raised eyebrows when she effortlessly aced an exam, and the hushed, barbed comments from classmates who whispered doubts about whether she truly belonged. But through it all, Angela had persevered, her formidable will unbent. She had graduated at the top of her class, her unwavering determination and undeniable skill effectively silencing even her harshest critics. Now, standing in the seemingly impenetrable halls of St. Mary's, Angela drew immense strength from those poignant memories. She had faced and overcome formidable obstacles before, and she would undoubtedly do so again. The door creaked open, revealing a middle-aged woman with a stern, uninviting expression. "Miss Parker, I presume?" she clipped, her tone devoid of warmth. "Come in. We have a lot to cover, and I expect you to keep up." As Angela followed the head nurse into the office, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that she was stepping into far more than just a new job. The very air in the hospital seemed charged with an unsettling undercurrent of tension, a silent, gathering storm brewing beneath the superficial veneer of professional smiles and sterile efficiency. Little did Angela know that her very presence, her undeniable competence, would soon become the unexpected catalyst for profound change within the hallowed, yet tainted, halls of St. Mary's. It would challenge long-held prejudices, relentlessly expose the toxic culture that lurked, like a venomous serpent, behind its prestigious facade, and ultimately force a reckoning that was long overdue. The remainder of Angela's first day dissolved into a dizzying whirlwind of orientations, a barrage of introductions, and a veritable mountain of paperwork. As she navigated her way through the labyrinthine corridors of the hospital, she couldn't help but keenly observe the subtle, almost imperceptible ways in which she was systematically excluded. Conversations, once lively, would abruptly drop to a hushed murmur as she approached, only to resume in conspiratorial whispers once she had passed. Her tentative attempts at small talk with fellow nurses were met with polite, yet unmistakably distant, responses, leaving her feeling like an alien outsider in what should have been a collaborative, welcoming environment. By the time her shift finally ended, Angela was mentally and emotionally wrung out, her spirit heavy with a pervasive sense of isolation. As she gathered her belongings from her locker, a low murmur of voices drifted from around the corner, two nurses talking in hushed, conspiratorial tones. "Did you see the new hire?" one whispered, a note of disdain in her voice. "Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking," the other replied, her voice dripping with thinly veiled prejudice. "This isn't exactly the neighborhood for, you know." Angela's hand froze on her locker door, her heart sinking with a painful thud. She had desperately hoped that the initial coolness was merely the jitters of a new workplace, easily overcome. But now, the harsh reality of her situation was becoming painfully, unequivocally clear. This wasn't just a new job, it was destined to be a daily, exhausting battle against entrenched prejudice and deeply ingrained preconceptions. As she departed the hospital, the crushing weight of the day pressed down on her shoulders. Each subtle slight and unspoken judgment a physical burden. Angela made her way to the bus stop, her mind a tempest of conflicting emotions. The surge of excitement she had felt that morning had been replaced by a gnawing, desolate sense of doubt and profound isolation. Sitting on the unyielding plastic bench, Angela pulled out her phone and dialed a familiar, comforting number. After 2 rings, a warm, melodious voice answered. "Hey, baby girl, how was your first day?" At the tender sound of her mother's voice, Angela felt the burning prick of tears at the corners of her eyes. She took a shaky breath, determined not to break down in public, not here, not now. "It was challenging, Mama," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper, raw with unshed emotion. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, a pause pregnant with understanding, before her mother spoke again, her voice imbued with a quiet, unwavering strength. "Angela Marie Parker, you listen to me. You've worked too hard to let anyone make you feel less than. Remember who you are and where you come from. You're not just there for yourself, you're there for every little black girl who dreams of being in those halls one day." Angela closed her eyes, letting her mother's powerful words wash over her, a soothing balm on her wounded spirit. "I know, Mama," she whispered, a fresh wave of determination rising within her. "It's just, I didn't expect it to be this hard. Nothing worth doing is ever easy, baby," her mother replied, her wisdom a guiding light. "But you've got the strength of generations behind you. Hold your head high, do your job better than anyone else, and don't you dare let them see you falter. You hear me?" "Yes, Mama," Angela said, a renewed sense of resolute purpose coursing through her veins. "I hear you." As she ended the call, Angela noticed a sleek, black Mercedes slowing as it glided past the bus stop. Through the tinted windows, she caught a fleeting glimpse of Dr. Greaves, his eyes momentarily locked on her before the luxurious car accelerated and sped away into the twilight. Angela squared her shoulders, her mother's powerful words echoing in her mind. She might be facing an arduous uphill battle, a mountain of prejudice to climb, but she was far from alone. With the unwavering strength of her family bolstering her spirit and her own fierce determination to prove herself, Angela knew she could weather whatever challenges St. Mary's maliciously threw her way. As the bus approached, Angela stood, ready to face another day, another battle. Little did she know that her very presence at St. Mary's was about to set in motion a profound chain of events that would not only challenge the very foundations of the hospital's deeply ingrained culture but also expose long-hidden prejudices, forcing a painful, yet necessary, reckoning that was long overdue. The subsequent weeks at St. Mary's General Hospital unfolded like a slow-burning fuse, each passing day adding another suffocating layer of tension to Angela Parker's already challenging work environment. The initial, chilly coolness she had experienced on her very first day had subtly, yet insidiously evolved into a more pervasive form of exclusion, one that was harder to pinpoint, like a shifting shadow, but utterly impossible to ignore. As Angela diligently made her morning rounds, she couldn't help but notice the stark, glaring difference in how she was treated compared to her white colleagues. Dr. William Greaves, in particular, seemed to take a perverse, almost sadistic pleasure in meticulously finding fault with her work, no matter how diligently or perfectly she performed her duties. "Nurse Parker!" Dr. Greaves's voice, sharp and cutting, sliced across the busy nurses' station one morning. "I hope you've familiarized yourself with our protocols by now. We can't afford any mistakes." The chilling emphasis he placed on the word, mistakes, sent an icy tremor down Angela's spine. She met his gaze steadily, her resolve unwavering, refusing to be intimidated. "Of course, Dr. Greaves. I assure you, I'm fully versed in all hospital procedures." Dr. Greaves raised an eyebrow, a patronizing smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "We'll see about that, won't we? Let's hope you've learned everything you need to here." The barely veiled condescension in his tone was not lost on Angela, nor on the other nurses who, with feigned diligence, pretended to be engrossed in their tasks while obviously eavesdropping. As Dr. Greaves walked away, Angela could feel the crushing weight of unspoken judgments pressing down on her, a suffocating blanket, throughout the entire day. Throughout her shifts, Angela found herself consistently assigned to the most challenging and undesirable tasks, the ones no one else wanted. While her white colleagues were often given relatively straightforward cases, Angela was repeatedly dispatched to deal with the most difficult patients and the most complex, arduous procedures. "Angela, would you mind taking Mr. Johnson in room 305? A fellow nurse asked, her voice sickly sweet, almost cloying. "He's been a bit challenging today." Angela nodded, knowing full well that challenging was a grave understatement. Mr. Johnson was notoriously known for his vicious, racist outbursts, and had already driven 2 nurses to tears that week alone. Yet, Angela approached the task with unwavering professionalism, her resolve steely, determined to prove her worth, not to them, but to herself. As she entered Mr. Johnson's room, bracing herself for the inevitable tirade, Angela couldn't help but wonder if this assignment was just another way to test her resolve, or, more sinisterly, to deliberately set her up for failure. "What are you doing here?" Mr. Johnson spat the moment he saw her, his eyes narrowed with overt hostility. "I told them I don't want no colored nurse touching me." Angela took a deep, fortifying breath, steeling herself against the onslaught of hateful words. "Mr. Johnson, I'm here to check your vitals and change your dressing. I assure you, I'm more than qualified to provide your care." As she meticulously worked, enduring a constant stream of vile racial slurs and insidious insults, Angela maintained an impenetrable composure. She completed her tasks with precision and unwavering care, stubbornly refusing to let Mr. Johnson's bigotry taint the quality of her work, or, more importantly, break her spirit. When she finally emerged from the room, emotionally and mentally battered, Angela found Dr. Greaves waiting in the hallway, a look of feigned concern plastered on his face. "Everything all right in there, Nurse Parker?" "We heard quite a commotion." Angela met his gaze evenly, her voice a calm, unwavering counterpoint to his thinly veiled malice. "Mr. Johnson's vitals are stable, and his dressing has been changed. Is there anything else you need from me, Dr. Greaves?" For a fleeting moment, surprise flickered across the doctor's face, quickly replaced by his usual, smug mask of condescension. "Well, let's hope you can maintain that level of composure with all your patients. We wouldn't want any complaints now, would we?" As Dr. Greaves walked away, Angela couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that she had just passed some sort of insidious test, one that she should never, ever have been subjected to in the first place. The remainder of Angela's shift blurred into an exhausting cycle of endless tasks and subtle slights. She found herself constantly having to double and triple check her work, not because she doubted her own abilities, but because she knew, with a chilling certainty, that even the smallest, most insignificant mistake would be magnified, distorted, and mercilessly used against her. As the day wore on, Angela couldn't help but notice how her white colleagues seemed to effortlessly breeze through their shifts, chatting and laughing lightheartedly, while she struggled under the crushing weight of her disproportionate workload. The inequality was glaring, a raw, open wound, but every time she considered speaking up, the memory of her mother's words, a guiding mantra, held her back. "Don't you dare let them see you falter." By the time her shift finally ended, Angela was physically and emotionally drained, her reserves completely depleted. As she gathered her things from her locker, she overheard two nurses whispering nearby. "Can you believe they're making such a big deal about diversity hires?" one nurse said, her voice dripping with undisguised disdain. "It's not like they can keep up with the rest of us anyway." "I know," the other replied, a hint of grudging admiration in her voice. "But you have to admit, it's impressive how she keeps going. I would have cracked by now." Angela's hand froze on her locker door, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm in her chest. She wanted nothing more than to confront them, to unleash the torrent of righteous anger, to fiercely defend herself and her undeniable abilities. But she knew, with a painful certainty, that any such confrontation would only serve to reinforce their deeply ingrained prejudices, to hand them ammunition. Instead, she closed her locker quietly, her movements deliberate, and made her way out of the hospital, her head held high, despite the immense weight of the day pressing down on her shoulders. As Angela waited at the bus stop, the same sleek, black Mercedes she had seen before glided to a stop beside her. The window hummed down, revealing Dr. Greaves behind the wheel, his face a mask of condescension. "Nurse Parker," he called out, his voice dripping with false concern, a saccharine mockery. "Waiting for the bus again? Such a shame. Looks like that's all you can afford on a nurse's salary, isn't it?" Before Angela could even formulate a retort, Dr. Greaves sped away, leaving her standing there, humiliated and seething with impotent anger. The casual cruelty of his words cut deep, a fresh wound, reminding her once again of the arduous uphill battle she faced every single day at St. Mary's. As she boarded the bus, Angela's mind was a tempest of raw emotions. The excitement and nascent hope she had felt when she first started at St. Mary's seemed like a distant, fading memory now, replaced by a grim, unyielding determination to merely survive in this hostile, unforgiving environment. But even as she grappled with the day's crushing events, a small, persistent voice in the back of her mind whispered that something had to give. The burning question was, would she be the one to break under the constant, relentless pressure, or would her unwavering perseverance finally force a profound change in the toxic, festering culture of St. Mary's? Little did Angela know that an unexpected, powerful ally was about to enter her life, one who would help tip the scales decisively in her favor and expose the deep-seated prejudices that had long festered, like a malignant tumor, within the supposedly pristine walls of St. Mary's General Hospital. As the bus rumbled through the darkening streets, Angela closed her eyes, drawing immense strength from the vivid memory of her mother's resolute words and the enduring legacy of resilience that flowed, like a powerful river, through her very veins. Tomorrow would be another battle, another test, but she was unyieldingly determined to face it head-on, no matter what daunting challenges lay ahead. The next morning, Angela arrived at St. Mary's with a renewed, almost defiant determination. She had spent the night reflecting on her arduous experiences, meticulously reminding herself of the profound reason she became a nurse in the first place: to help people, regardless of their background or her own formidable challenges. As she made her way to the nurses' station, Angela noticed a sudden flurry of activity. Nurses scurried, their movements hurried, meticulously preparing a room, and there was an almost palpable air of anticipation, a nervous energy she hadn't felt before. "What's going on?" Angela asked one of her colleagues, curious about the commotion that had replaced the usual tension. The nurse, momentarily forgetting her usual coolness towards Angela, replied excitedly, "We've got a VIP patient coming in. Some big shot who got into a skiing accident. Both arms broken, from what I heard." Before Angela could inquire further, Dr. Greaves appeared, his face set in a stern, almost predatory expression. "Nurse Parker," he said, his voice clipped and precise, "I need you to handle the new admission in room 412, Mr. Thomas Edwards. He's had a severe skiing accident, and both his arms are broken. I expect you to provide him with the utmost care and attention." Angela nodded, immediately recognizing the assignment for what it truly was: another calculated test, a high-stakes trial. "Of course, Dr. Greaves. I'll see to it right away." As she made her way to room 412, Angela couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that this assignment was different somehow. The palpable air of importance surrounding this patient, the hushed whispers, it made her wonder if there was more to this situation than met the eye. Entering the room, Angela was greeted by the sight of a middle-aged man lying in bed, both arms encased in thick, white casts. Despite his obvious injuries, there was an unmistakable air of quiet authority about him that Angela immediately noticed. "Good morning, Mr. Edwards," she said, approaching the bed with a warm, professional smile. "I'm Nurse Angela Parker, and I'll be taking care of you during your stay with us." Mr. Edwards looked up at her, his eyes sharp and assessing, taking her in with an intensity that surprised her. "Good morning, Nurse Parker," he replied, his voice surprisingly strong and resonant given his condition. "I appreciate your help. I must say, I didn't expect to end up here after my skiing accident." As Angela began to meticulously check his vitals and assess his condition, she couldn't help but notice how Mr. Edwards watched her every move with keen, intelligent interest. Unlike some of the other patients she had dealt with, there was no hint of prejudice or disdain in his gaze, only a thoughtful, almost scholarly curiosity. "You seem very competent, Nurse Parker," Mr. Edwards commented, his voice smooth, as she carefully adjusted his fore. "How long have you been working at St. Mary's?" Angela paused, surprised by the genuine, unfeigned interest in his tone. "I've been here for a few weeks now, sir," she replied carefully, choosing her words with precision. "It's been quite an experience so far." Mr. Edwards raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement playing at the corners of his mouth, catching her diplomatic response. "I see," he said, his voice a low rumble. "And how have you found the hospital? Living up to its prestigious reputation, I hope?" Angela hesitated, unsure of how to truthfully answer. She was saved from responding by the abrupt arrival of Dr. Greaves, who burst into the room with an overly cheerful, almost saccharine demeanor that Angela had never witnessed before. "Mr. Edwards!" Dr. Greaves exclaimed, his voice dripping with false warmth, an oily sincerity. "I trust Nurse Parker has been taking good care of you? We only assign our best staff to our most distinguished patients." Angela fought to keep her expression neutral, knowing full well that Dr. Greaves had never shown such effusive faith in her abilities before. Mr. Edwards, however, seemed to effortlessly pick up on the glaring inconsistency. "Indeed, Dr. Greaves," he replied, his sharp eyes flicking subtly between the doctor and Angela. "Nurse Parker has been exemplary. I was just asking her about her experiences here at St. Mary's." Dr. Greaves's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a brief flicker of unease, before he quickly recovered, his mask back in place. "Well, I'm sure she'll tell you it's been nothing short of excellent. We pride ourselves on our inclusive and supportive environment here at St. Mary's." Angela felt a sudden surge of righteous anger at Dr. Greaves's blatant hypocrisy, a sickening wave of disgust. But she maintained her professional demeanor, her face a serene mask. Mr. Edwards, however, seemed to effortlessly sense the underlying tension, the unspoken battles. "Is that so?" he mused, his eyes never leaving Angela's face, a thoughtful intensity in their depths. "Well, I look forward to experiencing this supportive environment firsthand during my stay." As Dr. Greaves launched into a verbose, detailed explanation of Mr. Edwards's treatment plan, Angela couldn't shake the powerful feeling that she had just witnessed something profoundly significant. The way Mr. Edwards had looked at her, the pointed nature of his questions, his subtle, almost imperceptible challenges to Dr. Greaves's narrative, it was as if he was seeing beyond the polished, deceptive facade of St. Mary's, discerning the ugly truths beneath. Over the next few days, Angela found herself spending an increasing amount of time in Mr. Edwards's room, far more than with any other patient. Despite his injuries, he was remarkably alert and engaging, often asking her probing questions about her work and her background. Unlike many of the other patients and staff, Mr. Edwards seemed genuinely interested in her responses, never betraying a hint of the deep-seated prejudice she had reluctantly come to expect. One afternoon, as Angela was meticulously changing Mr. Edwards's bandages, she overheard a conversation just outside the room that made her blood run cold, a chilling premonition of malice. "I don't care what Dr. Greaves says," a nurse's voice hissed, laced with venomous suspicion. "I don't trust that Parker woman with our VIP patient. Who knows what she might do?" "I know," another voice agreed, their tone equally conspiratorial. "But we can't say anything. They'll just accuse us of being racist." Angela's hands trembled slightly as she finished her task, the crushing weight of the constant suspicion and pervasive mistrust bearing down on her, an unbearable burden. Mr. Edwards, ever observant, immediately noticed her distress, his gaze sharp and perceptive. "Is everything all right, Nurse Parker?" he asked, his voice gentle but probing, cutting through her turmoil. Angela forced a weak, strained smile. "Of course, Mr. Edwards. Just concentrating on getting these bandages just right." Mr. Edwards was silent for a moment, his eyes studying her face with an unnerving intensity, as if he could read the turmoil in her soul. "You know," he said finally, his voice low and deliberate, "I've always believed that a person's true character is revealed not in how they treat their superiors, but in how they treat those they perceive as beneath them." Angela looked up, startled by the pointed, almost accusatory nature of his comment. Mr. Edwards held her gaze, a knowing, empathetic look in his eyes. "I've seen a lot in my time, Nurse Parker, and I can tell you, the view from this bed has been illuminating." Before Angela could respond, Dr. Greaves, like a malevolent specter, entered the room, abruptly cutting their conversation short. As she left the room, a profound sense of unease settled upon Angela. She couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Edwards was more than just a VIP patient. His words, his insightful observations, and his quiet actions hinted at a much deeper, more nuanced understanding of the insidious dynamics at play within St. Mary's. And for the very first time since she started working there, Angela felt a fragile glimmer of hope. Little did she know that Mr. Edwards's presence, his watchful, discerning eye, was about to set in motion a profound chain of events that would mercilessly shake the very foundations of St. Mary's General Hospital, exposing the deep-seated prejudices that had long festered, like a silent, virulent infection, beneath its pristine, deceitful surface. As the days painfully wore on, Angela found herself increasingly isolated at St. Mary's. The initial coolness from her colleagues had metastasized into outright hostility, with venomous whispered comments and pointed, malicious glares following her wherever she went, like invisible daggers. Dr. Greaves, emboldened by the glaring lack of consequences for his abhorrent behavior, became even more overt and audacious in his relentless attempts to undermine her, to systematically dismantle her confidence and her career. One morning, as Angela was diligently reviewing patient charts at the nurse's station, Dr. Greaves, like a lurking predator, approached her with a towering stack of files. "Nurse Parker," he said, his voice dripping with a sickeningly false concern, an insincere sweetness that made Angela's skin crawl. "I need you to handle these cases today. They're particularly challenging. I trust you're up to the task." Angela looked at the impossibly high pile, immediately recognizing it as nearly double the workload of any of her colleagues. She met Dr. Greaves's gaze steadily, refusing to betray any sign of intimidation, her resolve unyielding. "Of course, Dr. Greaves. I'll see to it right away." As Dr. Greaves walked away, a triumphant, malicious smirk playing at the corners of his mouth, Angela distinctly heard him mutter under his breath to another doctor, "Let's see how she handles this. This should be interesting." Throughout the day, Angela found herself desperately running from one difficult, demanding case to another, barely having time to catch her breath, to even think. The patients deliberately assigned to her were among the most demanding in the entire hospital, many with complex, debilitating medical needs or notoriously challenging, often hostile, personalities. Despite the overwhelming, crushing workload, Angela stubbornly refused to let her meticulous standards slip. She approached each patient with the same unwavering level of care and professionalism, even as pure exhaustion began to set in, a deep, pervasive fatigue that seeped into her very bones. However, the constant, relentless pressure was taking its toll, both physically and emotionally, eroding her spirit. As she rushed to respond to yet another insistent call light, Angela overheard two of her colleagues whispering nearby, their voices laced with cruel anticipation. "Can you believe they're letting her handle all these critical cases?" one nurse said, her voice dripping with undisguised disdain. "It's like they're just waiting for her to mess up." "I know," the other replied, a chilling undercurrent of excitement in her tone. "But you have to admit, it's impressive how she keeps going. I would have cracked by now." Angela felt a searing mix of anger and profound hurt wash over her. The crushing realization that her colleagues were not only acutely aware of the unfair, discriminatory treatment she was enduring but were actively, almost gleefully, watching to see if she would finally fail was almost too much to bear. As the day wore on, Angela found herself making more frequent, almost desperate, trips to Mr. Edwards's room. Unlike the rest of the hospital, his room had miraculously become a sort of sanctuary for her, a small, quiet haven where she could momentarily catch her breath and feel, if only for a fleeting moment, that someone truly saw her, truly recognized her worth. "Nurse Parker." Mr. Edwards greeted her warmly as she entered his room for a routine check, his voice gentle and concerned. "You look exhausted. Is everything all right?" Angela managed a weak, strained smile. "Just a busy day, Mr. Edwards. Nothing I can't handle." Mr. Edwards studied her face for a moment, his wise eyes filled with genuine concern, his gaze piercing. "You know," he said carefully, his voice low and thoughtful, "there's a difference between handling something and thriving. From what I've seen, you're more than capable of the latter." His words, though inherently kind, only served to highlight the stark, painful contrast between how Mr. Edwards treated her and how the rest of the hospital staff, with their cold indifference, did. Angela felt a painful lump form in her throat, the crushing weight of her isolation threatening to completely overwhelm her. "Thank you, Mr. Edwards," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper, thick with suppressed emotion. "I appreciate your kindness." As she turned to leave, a quiet voice, imbued with a newfound, subtle authority, called out to her. "Nurse Parker," Mr. Edwards said, his voice firm and resonant, making her pause, an almost involuntary halt. "Remember, sometimes the greatest strength lies in knowing when to speak up." Angela left the room, her mind reeling with the profound implications of Mr. Edwards's unexpected words. As she made her way back to the nurse's station, she couldn't shake the powerful, intuitive feeling that something monumental was about to change. Little did she know that the very next day would bring a cascade of events that would push her to her absolute limits and force a dramatic confrontation that had been brewing, like a simmering cauldron, since her very first day at St. Mary's. The following morning, Angela arrived at work to find the hospital in a state of heightened, almost frantic activity. Rumors swirled like a tangible entity about a high-stakes emergency operation scheduled for later that day, with several hospital board members and important, influential visitors expected to observe the critical procedure. As Angela began her arduous rounds, she couldn't help but notice the nervous, almost palpable energy permeating the entire hospital. Nurses and doctors alike seemed on edge, their faces etched with anxiety, the immense pressure of the upcoming operation weighing heavily on everyone's minds. Midway through her morning duties, Dr. Greaves, a predatory glint in his eye, approached Angela, immediately putting her on guard, a prickle of unease. "Nurse Parker," he said, his voice meticulously neutral, a false calm before a storm. "We need you to assist in the emergency operation this afternoon. It's a critical case. I trust you're prepared to handle it." Angela felt a sharp mix of surprise and suspicion wash over her. Being asked to assist in such a high-profile operation was usually an immense honor, a mark of respect. But coming from Dr. Greaves, she couldn't help but wonder if there was an insidious, ulterior motive, a trap carefully laid. "Of course, Dr. Greaves," she replied, keeping her voice steady, unwavering. "I'll be ready." As Dr. Greaves walked away, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing at the corners of his mouth, Angela overheard him muttering to another doctor, "Let's see how she handles the pressure. This should be interesting." The hours leading up to the operation were a blur of frenzied preparation and heightened anticipation. Angela threw herself into her work with an almost desperate intensity, double and triple checking everything, meticulously ensuring she was as prepared as humanly possible for whatever daunting challenges the operation might maliciously throw her way. As she scrubbed in for the surgery, the cold, sterile scent of antiseptic filling her nostrils, Angela couldn't help but notice the skeptical, almost hostile looks from some of the other staff members. She took a deep, fortifying breath, steeling herself for what was to come, her mother's powerful words echoing in her mind like a sacred mantra. "Don't you dare let them see you falter." The operation began, and Angela found herself working alongside Dr. Greaves and several other senior staff members. The tension in the room was palpable, a heavy, suffocating blanket, exacerbated by the knowledge that important observers were watching their every move, adding an extra layer of excruciating pressure. Despite the challenging circumstances, Angela remained incredibly focused, her movements precise, efficient, and almost intuitive. She anticipated the needs of the surgeons, handing them instruments before they even had to ask, her years of meticulous training and invaluable experience shining through, a beacon of competence. However, as the operation progressed, Angela noticed something that made her heart race, a sudden, chilling dread. Dr. Greaves, usually so confident, so arrogantly sure of himself, seemed to be hesitating. His hands trembled slightly as he prepared to make a critical incision, a telltale sign of an alarming lapse. In that fleeting split second, Angela's mind registered the horrifying realization: Dr. Greaves was about to make a potentially life-threatening mistake, a grave error that could cost a human life. Without a flicker of hesitation, driven by an innate, unshakable moral compass, she spoke up. "Dr. Greaves," she said, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the tense silence, "perhaps we should consider approaching from a different angle. The patient's anatomy suggests it might be safer." The room fell into an immediate, stunned silence, all eyes, like laser beams, turning to Angela. Dr. Greaves looked at her, a turbulent mix of surprise and furious anger flashing across his face, his ego visibly bruised. For a moment, Angela thought he might dismiss her suggestion outright, publicly humiliate her. But then, almost imperceptibly, a grudging, almost reluctant nod. He adjusted his approach, meticulously following Angela's suggestion. As they continued the operation, it became terrifyingly clear that her quick-thinking intervention had likely saved the patient's life, pulling them back from the brink of catastrophe. As the surgery concluded successfully, a wave of palpable relief washing over the room, Angela could feel the weight of many eyes upon her. Some looked at her with newfound respect, a glimmer of admiration in their gazes, while others, including a seething, barely contained Dr. Greaves, seemed to be boiling with barely concealed fury. As they began to clean up, Dr. Greaves turned to Angela, his voice low and menacing, a sinister hiss. "Nurse Parker, I need to see you in private." Immediately. Angela followed Dr. Greaves out of the operating room, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She knew that speaking up had been the unequivocally right thing to do, a moral imperative. But she also knew, with a chilling certainty, that it might have just cost her her hard-earned job, her entire career. As they entered a private room, Angela was surprised to see that it was Mr. Edwards's room. In her intense focus on the operation, she had completely forgotten that he was still a patient in the hospital. Dr. Greaves, however, seemed too consumed by his furious rage to even notice or care about their location. As soon as the door slammed shut behind them, he rounded on Angela, his face a mottled mask of furious red, his eyes blazing with unrestrained fury. "How dare you question my judgment in there?" he hissed, his voice dripping with venom, shaking with barely contained rage. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? You're lucky I don't have you fired on the spot for such insubordination." Angela stood her ground, her stance resolute, her voice calm but firm, a stark contrast to his unbridled fury. "Dr. Greaves, I was simply doing my job." "The patient's safety, your job?" Dr. Greaves interrupted, his voice rising to a furious roar, raw with prejudice. "Your job is to follow orders, not to think you know better than your superiors. This is exactly why people like you don't belong in a prestigious institution like St. Mary's. You're here because of some misguided attempt at diversity, not because you have any real skill or knowledge." As Dr. Greaves continued his hateful tirade, his words becoming increasingly openly racist and hostile with each passing, agonizing moment, Angela felt a sickening mix of anger and profound despair wash over her. Everything she had endured, every subtle slight, every insidious microaggression, every cutting remark, seemed to pale in crushing comparison to this blatant, undeniable display of raw prejudice, this open contempt. Just as Angela was about to respond, to unleash a torrent of righteous indignation, a powerful, commanding voice cut through the room, stopping Dr. Greaves mid-sentence, his hateful words abruptly choked off. "Dr. Greaves," Mr. Edwards said, his voice suddenly filled with a quiet, yet undeniable authority that neither of them had heard before, a resonant power that filled the small room. "I believe you've forgotten where you are, and who you're speaking to." Both Angela and Dr. Greaves turned, startled, their heads snapping toward the bed, to see Mr. Edwards sitting bolt upright, a look of controlled anger, a simmering fury on his face, his eyes piercing. "Mr. Edwards," Dr. Greaves stammered, his face paling to an ashen white as the full gravity of his monumental mistake slammed into him. I didn't realize you were awake. I apologize for disturbing you." "Oh, I'm very much awake, Dr. Greaves," Mr. Edwards replied, his eyes narrowing, his voice a cold steel. "And I've been awake for quite some time. Long enough to observe the disgraceful way you and others in this hospital have been treating Nurse Parker." Angela stood frozen, rooted to the spot, utterly unable to believe what she was hearing, what was unfolding before her very eyes. Mr. Edwards, the quiet, unassuming patient, was suddenly radiating an aura of immense power and undeniable authority that filled the entire room, a tangible force. "Mr. Edwards," Dr. Greaves began again, his voice trembling now, fear creeping in. "I assure you, there's been a misunderstanding." There's been no misunderstanding." Mr. Edwards cut him off sharply, his voice devoid of mercy. "What I've witnessed during my stay here is a clear, undeniable pattern of discrimination and harassment. And it ends now." As Mr. Edwards spoke, the horrifying, monumental realization dawned on both Angela and Dr. Greaves. He was far more than just a VIP patient. The way he carried himself, the unyielding authority in his voice, the chillingly calm control, it was clear that Mr. Edwards wielded immense, significant power, a hidden force. Who are you?" Dr. Greaves stammered, his earlier bravado completely evaporating, replaced by raw fear. Mr. Edwards smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only a cold, chilling satisfaction. "Someone who has the power to make or break this hospital's future. And right now, Dr. Greaves, I'm not feeling very inclined to support an institution that allows such blatant racism and unprofessional behavior." As the full gravity of the catastrophic situation sank in, Angela felt a tumultuous mix of emotions wash over her, Immense relief that someone had finally, truly witnessed and acknowledged the abhorrent treatment she had been enduring, a burning, righteous anger at the profound injustice she had faced, and against all odds, a fragile glimmer of hope that perhaps, finally, things might truly change. Little did any of them know that this climactic confrontation, this unexpected revelation, was about to set in motion a profound series of events that would mercilessly shake St. Mary's General Hospital to its very core, exposing long-hidden prejudices and forcing a devastating, yet ultimately necessary, reckoning that was long overdue. The tension in Mr. Edwards's room was palpable, a suffocating weight, as the full, chilling weight of his words sank in. Dr. Greaves, his face ashen with dawning horror, struggled desperately to regain his composure, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Angela stood silently, her mind reeling, utterly overwhelmed by the sudden, dramatic turn of events, the swift, decisive shift in power. Mr. Edwards, now fully sitting up in his bed, fixed Dr. Greaves with a steely, unyielding gaze. "I think it's time we had a frank discussion about the culture of this hospital, don't you?" Before Dr. Greaves could even stammer a response, a hesitant knock sounded at the door. A nervous-looking nurse poked her head in, her eyes wide with urgency. "Dr. Greaves, the hospital administrator is looking for you. It's urgent." Dr. Greaves looked frantically between Mr. Edwards and the nurse, clearly torn, trapped. Finally, he nodded stiffly, defeated. "We'll continue this discussion later, Mr. Edwards. Nurse Parker, you're dismissed for now." As Dr. Greaves practically scurried out of the room, a man utterly broken, Angela found herself alone with Mr. Edwards. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words, with the weight of the moment. "Nurse Parker," Mr. Edwards finally said, his voice gentler now, the sharp edge gone. "I think it's time I properly introduce myself. My name is Thomas Edwards, and I'm the CEO of Healthcare United, one of the largest healthcare conglomerates in the country." Angela's eyes widened in profound shock, her breath catching in her throat. Healthcare United was a veritable powerhouse in the medical world, renowned for its immense influence, its vast resources, its iron grip. Suddenly Mr. Edwards's earlier, cryptic comments about having the power to make or break the hospital made terrifying, yet exhilarating, perfect sense. "Mr. Edwards, Angela began, unsure of what to say, her mind reeling. "Please sit down," Mr. Edwards said, gesturing to a chair beside his bed, a gesture of respect. "I think we have a lot to discuss." Over the next hour, Mr. Edwards, with calm, deliberate precision, revealed that while his stay at St. Mary's had been entirely unplanned due to his skiing accident, it had inadvertently opened his eyes to the deep-seated, systemic issues festering within the hospital. "I came here as a patient, expecting nothing more than quality medical care," Mr. Edwards explained, his voice laced with a quiet fury. "Instead, I've witnessed a culture of discrimination and unprofessionalism that goes against everything I believe in as a healthcare leader." He went on to meticulously describe how he had observed, with an almost scientific detachment, the subtle and not-so-subtle discrimination Angela had faced, the insidious microaggressions, the overt hostility, and the pervasive, truly toxic culture that seemed to permeate every corner of the hospital. "Your experience, Nurse Parker, is unfortunately not unique," Mr. Edwards said, his voice filled with a powerful mix of anger and unwavering determination. "But it is unacceptable. And it ends now." As they talked, Angela felt a monumental weight lifting off her shoulders, a crushing burden finally released. For the very first time since she started at St. Mary's, she felt truly seen, truly heard, her struggles validated. Mr. Edwards listened intently as she shared her agonizing experiences, her voice sometimes raw with emotion, his face growing more serious with each devastating revelation. "Thank you for your honesty, Nurse Parker," Mr. Edwards said when she finished, his gaze unwavering. "Your resilience in the face of such adversity is commendable. But it's time for systemic change, not just individual perseverance." Just then, there was another tentative knock at the door. The hospital administrator, her face flushed and flustered, entered the room. "Mr. Edwards," she stammered, her voice trembling slightly, her composure visibly shattered. "I understand there's been some concern about our hospital's practices. I assure you, we take these matters very seriously." Mr. Edwards raised an eyebrow, a flicker of disdain in his eyes. "Do you? Because from what I've observed, the only thing taken seriously here is maintaining an outdated and discriminatory status quo." The administrator paled, clearly unprepared for such direct, unvarnished criticism. I'm not sure I understand. We have diversity initiatives in place. Initiatives are not enough." Mr. Edwards cut her off sharply, his voice carrying the full weight of his authority. "What you need is a complete overhaul of your hospital's culture. And it starts at the top." Over the next few hours, Mr. Edwards, with an almost surgical precision, laid out his unwavering demands for change. He called for a full, comprehensive investigation into the discriminatory practices at St. Mary's, mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all staff, and a complete, fundamental revamp of the hospital's hiring and promotion practices. "And as for Dr. Greaves," Mr. Edwards said, his voice hard, unyielding, "I expect his behavior to be thoroughly investigated. His actions today were not just unprofessional, they were discriminatory and potentially dangerous to patient care." The administrator, finally comprehending the overwhelming gravity of the situation, nodded numbly, defeated. "Of course, Mr. Edwards. We'll begin implementing these changes immediately." As the day wore on, word of Mr. Edwards's true identity and the sweeping, radical changes he was demanding spread like wildfire throughout the hospital. The atmosphere in the halls of St. Mary's was electric, a volatile mix of fear, anticipation, and for some, a fragile, nascent hope. Angela, still processing everything that had happened, the dizzying speed of it all, found herself at the center of attention. Colleagues who had previously ignored or belittled her now approached her, some offering awkward, mumbled apologies, others, with a newfound respect, seeking her insight on the impending, dramatic changes. As her shift finally ended, Angela made her way to Mr. Edwards's room one last time. She found him sitting up, looking tired but profoundly satisfied, a quiet triumph in his eyes. "Nurse Parker," he greeted her with a warm, genuine smile. "Or should I say, Chief Diversity Officer Parker? How are you holding up?" Angela let out a tired, almost disbelieving laugh. "It's been quite a day, Mr. Edwards. I'm still processing everything, to be honest." Mr. Edwards nodded understandingly. "I know, it's a lot to take in. But I want you to know that I have full confidence in your ability to lead these changes. Your resilience and integrity in the face of adversity are exactly what St. Mary's needs right now." As they walked out of the hospital together, the evening air cool and fresh, Mr. Edwards turned to Angela with a serious, resolute expression. "You should know that what's happening here at St. Mary's is just the beginning. I plan to implement similar changes across all of Healthcare United's facilities. Your story, Angela, has the potential to spark a revolution in how we approach diversity and inclusion in healthcare." Angela felt the immense weight of the responsibility settle upon her shoulders, a monumental task. But rather than feeling burdened, she felt profoundly empowered. "I'm ready for the challenge, Mr. Edwards. Together, we can make real, lasting change." As they parted ways, Angela couldn't help but reflect on how much had fundamentally changed in just a few short days. From feeling isolated, on the agonizing verge of giving up, she now stood at the forefront of a powerful movement, a seismic shift that had the potential to transform not just St. Mary's but the entire healthcare industry. The road ahead, she knew, would be challenging, filled with formidable obstacles and stubborn resistance from those clinging to the outdated status quo. But as Angela looked back at the hospital, its gleaming facade now symbolizing a promise of a better future, she felt a surge of unyielding determination. This was more than just a job now. It was a sacred calling, a profound chance to ensure that no other healthcare professional would ever have to endure what she had gone through. With renewed purpose, Angela set off into the evening, ready to face whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. The profound transformation of St. Mary's had truly begun, and with it, a new, vital chapter in the relentless fight for equality and inclusion in healthcare. In the months that followed Mr. Edwards's monumental revelation, St. Mary's General Hospital underwent a dramatic, almost miraculous transformation. Under Angela's visionary leadership as Chief Diversity Officer and with Mr. Edwards's unwavering, continued support, the once toxic, suffocating culture began to perceptibly shift, slowly, but surely, towards an environment of genuine inclusivity and profound respect. The mandatory diversity and inclusion training, initially met with stubborn resistance and cynical grumbling, gradually, almost imperceptibly, opened eyes and slowly, but surely, changed hearts. Dr. Greaves, following a thorough, painstaking investigation that left no stone unturned, was decisively dismissed from his position, sending a clear, unequivocal message throughout the entire institution: discriminatory behavior would no longer be tolerated, not in any form. As the profound changes at St. Mary's gained national attention, word of their remarkable transformation spreading far and wide, Angela found herself increasingly in demand as a powerful, articulate speaker at prestigious medical conferences and impactful diversity seminars across the country. 1 year after the fateful day of Mr. Edwards's decisive intervention, she stood before a packed auditorium at a national healthcare conference, the hushed anticipation a palpable entity. "A year ago," Angela began, her voice resonating with quiet power and profound emotion, "I was a nurse on the verge of giving up, utterly defeated. Today, I stand before you as living proof that change is possible, that one voice, one unwavering act of courage, can indeed make a world of difference." She shared St. Mary's profound story of transformation, not shying away from the immense challenges they had faced, the bitter battles fought, but also eloquently highlighting the hard-won victories, the countless lives touched, the stubborn minds changed, and the entire culture irrevocably shifted. After the conference, Mr. Edwards, now fully recovered from his injuries, his arms completely healed, approached Angela with a warm, genuine smile, a testament to their shared journey. "Angela," he greeted her, his voice filled with sincere admiration, "you've come a long way from the nurse I met a year ago." They discussed the remarkable progress at St. Mary's and its powerful ripple effects across the broader healthcare industry. Mr. Edwards shared that several other hospitals within the Healthcare United network had enthusiastically begun implementing similar, transformative programs, inspired by St. Mary's success. "You know, Angela," Mr. Edwards said, his eyes reflecting a deep sense of satisfaction, "when I checked into St. Mary's after my skiing accident, I never, ever could have imagined the incredible journey it would set in motion. You've not only transformed St. Mary's, but you've reignited my own passion for this vital work, for making a real difference in people's lives." As Angela prepared to return to St. Mary's, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and renewed purpose, she reflected on her incredible, improbable journey, from an isolated, frustrated nurse, on the brink of despair, to a formidable leader and a true change-maker. She had come so far, overcome so much. The work was far from over, she knew, but Angela felt a profound sense of hope and an unwavering determination, stronger than ever before. Arriving back at St. Mary's, Angela was greeted by Sarah, once a cold, distant colleague, now a strong, supportive ally, a testament to the power of transformation. The hospital buzzed with a vibrant, new energy, a palpable sense of collaborative spirit. Staff members were genuinely collaborating and communicating in ways they never had before, their interactions marked by mutual respect and understanding. In the main lobby, Angela paused before a newly installed, strikingly beautiful mural depicting a diverse group of healthcare professionals working together in harmonious unity, their faces beaming with shared purpose. A polished plaque beneath it read, in bold, inspiring letters, "Diversity is our strength. Inclusion is our commitment. Compassion is our calling." As she settled into her office, ready to tackle the new challenges that undoubtedly lay ahead, Angela smiled, a serene, confident expression. The profound transformation of St. Mary's was truly just the beginning. The real, arduous work of changing hearts, minds, and entire systems was ongoing, a continuous, evolving process, and she was ready for it all, fully committed to fighting tirelessly for a truly inclusive, equitable healthcare system, one day at a time. What moment in Angela's profound journey resonated with you the most? Was it her unwavering perseverance in the relentless face of discrimination, or perhaps Mr. Edwards's unexpected, decisive intervention that tipped the scales of justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this tale with its unexpected twists and powerful moments of justice, please consider subscribing to my channel. I pour my heart into crafting these heartwarming, inspiring stories for you, and your support is truly what keeps me going, fueled by a shared belief in the power of human decency and systemic change. I deeply appreciate having you on this journey.